Hi folks, Iana Kone here. Here's the video on Module 2, even though that's a typo. It should say Module 2 right there. These are all problems from Module 2. Let's take a look at the first one. It looks like x minus 9 equals 6. We're going to add 9 to both sides to cancel that 9 right there. And we have our variable left by itself, and it's 15. And I always suggest checking your answers. You see how I have the original problem. Plugged in 15 and got 6. So I hope that one's not a problem. But if any of these are, just email me with a screenshot of what you're working on. And I don't think my scanner's working too well. All these red splotches are all over the place. It looks terrible. But on this one, this is a multiply by -8. So we're going to do the inverse of multiplication, which is divide by 8 on both sides. And then we get x equals 9. And then there's the check, of course, and it's -72. I only worked in class pretty much every other one because these are really similar. If you look, I'm working all the different types of problems. So I skip around a little bit, but this is what I worked in class the other day. So here is, first, it's a little more complex, and we can talk about, you do add the opposite, which is a plus 279. It gives you 279. But in class, I talked about some students asked if you could divide by 9 first. Well, yeah, you can. It leads to a much more complex problem. I didn't show it here, but a lot easier, straightforward, is getting rid of, I believe this is called the add-in, the one that's not with the variable. You get rid of that first, and then you divide by 9, and you get 31, and then it checks. I hope that helps. Give me a call or give me an email if it doesn't. So they get longer, of course, and I'll probably go a little slower here. Here we have variables on both sides. Now, I kind of forecasted ahead in what the problem would look like, but I've been doing this forever. And I knew that if I get rid of 5x here, subtract it, that'd be 0. And then if I subtract 5x on this side, we're left with a 2x, a positive 2x. So students asked, could you have subtracted 7x on both sides? That works fine. Could you have added 5 on both sides? That works fine. Whatever you do first, it's going to lead to the final answer, always of 4, if you do your steps right. So after I get balance out my variable, we're left with this shorter equation. We know to add the opposite, add 5 to both sides, cancels out the 5, and we're left with this. And hopefully we know to divide by 2 on both sides, and we get the 4 there, and it checks. So here is, I talked a good bit last night in class about, I really suggest use ChatGPT to check every single answer. To be honest, I do. I mean, I want to make sure that my problems I get to you are correct, but I also know myself. I can be a little lazy with negative signs and numbers. I always check my answer, even if I check it that way. Sometimes I'll check it with ChatGPT, or you can just, I figured this out very recently, just a few months ago. You can just type that equation in right there into Google, and it'll give you every single bit of this. Super quick way to check your work. And then if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, Google search it and click on it, ChatGPT, and create a free account and just type that in. It gives you a little more explanation. I like it more. But you have to be careful with both of them, with Google and ChatGPT, because sometimes the longer the equation, these AI programs can misinterpret it, and they'll solve a different problem than you have. But that's only for the really longer problems. And we get to one later. It checked this one just fine. This one's not, I mean, it's a beast, but it's not, there's a longer one later. So I'm showing every single step. You may or may not have to show all these. I don't know, but I want to show you every single thing that's going on. And it starts right here in the middle. We've got these parentheses, And we can resolve this first by distributing that 11. You see, that's what that means. And I show you the math here, 11 times x and 11 times. Now look, I put the negative sign. I put the negative sign right next to the 2. I just said I can be lazy with my negatives. So if I put it in parentheses there, I will see it. So that's why I have a plus between these two. I add everything, and then I've taken care of my negative sign, and I won't forget it later. So we're going to do here, resolve 11x, and then negative 22, and then you see we combine these two terms, and we're adding 22 to both sides, and we have this, divide by 2 on both sides, and we get 25. And it checks. I checked this one. I checked it on ChatGPT. Hopefully you've printed this out and you can follow along in this video with all of these, because I'm going a little fast, but I suppose you can rewind. This one very, very likely to come up. Actually, all these questions are exactly the same types of questions on all your quizzes. I just changed the numbers. That's it. So they're the same questions in the same order. They just have different numbers. So here's another. It's almost a warning, use ChatGPT. Because if you think about it, last night I talked a lot. If you think about it, you're paying a whole lot for this class. And if you get one problem wrong, I figured it out. It's $7. Out of all the problems you have to do, you really want to try to get 100% on all of these quizzes. Use ChatGPT to check on your knowledge check and your WebAssign. If you're stuck, take a screenshot of the screen, email it to me, and I'll help you out. And there's no time limit on it. And you really, really, truly want to get as high a grade as you possibly can on all your knowledge checks and your WebAssign, because when you take the midterm and final, if you don't do well, you don't want to have to repeat the class, because I can't curve your grades at all. So sorry about that. Let's get back to the problem here. Now this one is tough. It is, because of the fractions, and so many people, fractions scare them. I don't like them either. So just a few years ago, some teachers taught me this. It's not really a trick. It's a method that works, but some people call it a trick. I'm going to multiply every single term by 12. And I got 12 because both 6 and 12 go into 12. Excuse me. So watch what happens. I rewrote the problem 12, and I'm going to write every single step. I took my 12, I multiplied it by the first term. I took my 12, and I wrote it as a fraction, so because these are fractions. And I multiplied, see, by the second term. See how I kept that negative sign here in the parentheses, and I put the plus there, so I won't forget that later. It's so easy to forget those. And then I got the 12 here with the y over 12. So I copied the problem down again, because I like you to see how every line changes. No 2 steps in one line, because that can be confusing. So if we're on this step, you see how the 6 and the 12 cancel. It's just 2, and I should have put a 1 right there. So we reduce that fraction, 2 on the top. Can't do anything here. They're both 1 on the bottom. And then here, we can cancel the 12 with the 12. It's reducing a fraction. And look, your equation is much simpler. No fractions in it. And this is like one we've just done. So if you follow the steps, well, here I get negative 1y. I should back up. The reason I put a 1 there, sorry, but see here, there's no 1 in front of it. I put it as a placeholder because, once again, I can be lazy with my numbers. And if I have a 1 there, and I teach this to students, if they have a 1 there, then they realize, oh, I have to divide by that negative 1. And dividing by that negative 1, I should have canceled it, gives you just plain old 36, not a negative 36. And I checked it on another sheet of paper. Well, because the problems are getting longer. All right, now here, before I start it, here's the warning about ChatGPT. I typed this one in, and I know this is a complex problem. That 6x, where is it hanging in the midair? Does it go with the 6? Does it go with the 7? What does it go to? Well, I know it goes like this. The 6x, you see how I rewrite it in the numerator? But I wrote this into ChatGPT and it interpreted the problem wrong, and it gave me a wrong answer, completely wrong. But I knew that you have to check a couple of times with different sources. I plugged it into Photomath, and I believe it solved it right, but it's taking a picture of it. But Google got it wrong. So you have to be really, really careful. Now, in this one, because I'm giving you so many warnings, I knew I could experience problems with artificial intelligence solving this. So I did that to show you the warning. But when I'm working the problem, and I'll go through all of this, of course. Here, let's look at all this, man. This is a long problem, and you'll have one this long. You really will. I checked that by hand, and then I used the ChatGPT, and they had a much different answer. One got 88 or something. I checked that by hand, and it is 112. And Photomath got it right too. I believe they did. Well, let's go through it. So this is a super complex problem. I've talked already about. I put the 6x plus 7 in the numerator because that's what it means. That's where it belongs. I've got these fractions, so I'm going to multiply everything by 28, and I got 28 because 4 times 7. So it's the same process that I did before. Like 28 times the first term, times the second term, the third term, and I'll show you what to do with this. And then we can cancel. Canceled here, canceled there. And then we just have multiplication. I really like when students, they're showing every step, especially if they're uncomfortable with it. If they haven't had math for a while or whatever, try to show all your steps because you can catch errors that way. So after I went and I canceled here, it looks simpler, even though we have this big thing in the middle. And you're thinking, well, what does that mean? And then we got a big number. Some student said last night, well, that can't be right. It's an odd looking number. Well, it is a number. They're all numbers, but it is bigger than what we've been used to. So with this thing in the middle, notice I did this as a distributive property here, and that's how we get to 24. And I brought down everything else. And then we can do another. It's like a double distributive property. And do that, and you can see we get the 24 times the first one, the 6, and then the 24 times the 7. And then we do all the multiplication. We get this, and then we get this. And you combine some like terms, you get that. And then I'll continue in a second. Well, let's go ahead and solve it all. So I bring it up here. I rewrite the problem. So you see only one step per line. Subtract 168 from both sides. Well, I didn't show the last step. 16912 divided by 151 is 112, and it checks. I did that one. I checked that one by hand. I 1, 2, 3. I checked it in 4 different ways because for you, this problem is one problem out of, I forgot how many y'all work. It's a whole lot with all the quizzes and all the exams and everything. Each problem is worth about $7. So if you have to repeat the class, if you reduce it to those terms with money, it all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, I really do have to do it. Of course, you're motivated already, but it's just a different perspective. Now, what I wanted to say is down in here, some people may solve it differently. That's fine, of course. You can solve most math problems in 2 or 3 different ways. Some people might do something different here and still get the same answer. It doesn't matter as long as we get the same answer. And hopefully you're okay with that one. That's a super long one. Give me an email if you need to. And then over here, see here, I did just a little bit. I wanted to show you with the fractions with the 9, and that's a 1 right there. And then with the 2, if you multiply every term by 18, you'll cancel all those fractions, just like the 2 previous problems, and you should be okay with that. So I think there's only a few more. Oh, it's only one more. They're throwing ratios in there. Ratios are fractions, but they're a little bit different. Let's talk about how to determine if these are equal. For me, the quick way is to use a calculator to convert these to decimals. 13 over 36. I wanted to show you the keystrokes on your calculator just in case we get that. And then we get this for 29 over 84. These are not, because these are not the same, then those aren't equal. I've got another handout with the word problems, and if you missed class, I talked a lot about how to start word problems. Make sure to take a look at that one handout called Flowchart of Working Problems. Hope this helped. Give me an email if not. Thanks a lot. Bye.